Hey Drumline, it's good to see you. Thank you for submitting all of your cadences. I thought they were really coming along. If you're wondering why I'm filming like this, I, like an idiot, dropped my computer, so I'm going back to old school. So in this video, I just want to talk about some things that you can improve your cadences, and I'd like you to go over your cadence and just sort of address the things that are addressed in this video. So the first thing I want to talk to you guys about is simplifying your rests. So when we play cadence, usually what the computer program will do is it will simplify the rests that it does for you, but not always. So I noticed that a lot of you had rhythms that were like this. So you have ta, 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 and then a bunch of 16th rests, something like that. That is wrong. You would never play that. Rhythmically, it's accurate, but when you're composing, you always want to simplify to the lowest common denominator, just like math. So 4 16th notes is 2 8th notes, which is actually 1/4 rest. So this would actually be the accurate rhythm. Ta, 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 rest, full rest. Okay. So another thing I want to talk to you about is things called hanging notes. So if you look at this first rhythm, we have a 16th rest, an 8th note, and then just finishes off the measure. Now, rhythmically, this is correct, but there is a way to simplify this. And usually what people mean when they do this is if they have a 16th and 16th rest, usually what they want to do is just make a staccato 8th note, but they don't know how to write that. So this is the correct way of doing it. You put staccato 8th note, not a 16th note, because rhythmically these would actually sound identical. They're the exact same thing. This is just a cleaner way to write it, and the rule of thumb is use less rests if you have to. Okay, so that's the first one. Okay, so the second thing is you probably meant to write a double instead of a 30-second note. So the first example we have here is ta, 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 taka, 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 taka. Rhythmically accurate, but very rarely are you going to see that. Particularly 30-second notes. And the reason we don't usually use 30-second notes is because we end up using alternating hands. So we end up actually having right, left, right, left, right, left, like that. The way to cure that, or to make it simple, is you want to use doubles. So in flat.io, there is an option, I think it might be under articulation, to turn it into doubles, which simplifies the rhythm. So this is still ta, 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 taka, 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 but they're just doubles, so this one is right, right, left, left, right, right, left, left. Really important, so you want to simplify it and take away any 30-second note, because it's unlikely that you actually want to have that in your cadence. Okay, so the third thing I want to talk to you about is beware of layering non-triplet rhythms with normal rhythms, or triplet rhythms with normal rhythms, I should say. Let's erase that. So it can be a really cool effect, and it works on the computer, but when you take something when you have triplets with a normal rhythm like 16ths, as a human, it can be actually kind of difficult to play. And we do have some instances where we were doing that, but it can be difficult to line up. So I would encourage you to steer away from that. So an example is, here we have a snare and a tenor line together. And let's just say we have 4 quarter notes as the first measure. The second measure, the snare has ta 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 ta, and the tenor has da 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 da. It's all triplets, right? So these triplets against the 16ths, if you were to if I had a ruler, you would find that this note here would end up somewhere in the middle of the notes. And it ends up sort of creating a little bit of a mushy sound when you have a triplet feature with 16ths. So if you want to incorporate triplets, you totally can. Either A, give the entire ensemble some sort of triplet feature that's together, or B, do the triplets separately and have other parts of the ensemble doing something very simple like quarter notes or just resting. So this measure, bad, because we have this clash between the triplets and the 16ths. This measure, a little bit better, because we have triplet, rest, rest, and the snares have rest, rest, tap, 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 tap. That's something I would encourage you to do. So that's number 3. All right, number 4. Talked about this one last time. Playability. You have to ask yourself, is this really playable by high school students? Now, some of you had some really, really cool ideas, but if you were to sort of give them to humans, they wouldn't exactly be playable. As a rule of thumb, simple is always better. So I still want you to ask yourself, is it playable? Can a high school student play it? If the answer is yes, then go ahead. If it's even a question mark, then likely it's going to be too hard. So always err on the side of simplicity, and simplicity makes for really good cadences. Complex cadences aren't always better than simple ones. Number 5, this one's simple. Make a count-in. 1 measure, 2 measures is usually pretty standard, and it can be anyone in the ensemble. It's just got to be usually some 16ths, quarter notes, that sort of thing. It can be as fancy or as simple as you want. You got to have a count-in. We do that in Drumline all the time. All right, number 6. Good composers listen to good composers. Great composers steal each other's ideas and make it their own. Now, I am not promoting plagiarism. However, in the Drumline community, when you're writing cadences, it's actually pretty acceptable to be copying other people's work and changing it. So I do this all the time when I write cadences for Drumline. I go onto MuseScore and Flat.io and I look for ideas. If I find a few good measures that I really, really like, I'll copy and paste it and then change some of the rhythms to make it suit our group and to avoid straight up plagiarism, because that's not cool. So part of when you refine your cadence, what I want you to do is go and look at some cadences that you really, really like and copy that material. That's going to be really, really important, that you're listening to good composers to help you become a better one. Okay, this one's 7.5 because I forgot to write it in. First and second endings. Don't be afraid to use them. Now, in music, it's really important to have first and second endings. If you have an idea that you really, really like, and you would just want to go over and do it again, but you want to maybe change the flavor of it at the end, just do a first and second ending. So that might mean doing 7 measures of the exact same thing that you did, but then on measure 8, changing it. Now, it would be a waste. It kind of takes up a lot of space if you just write it out completely. A great way to achieve that is to just use a second ending and to change the last measure. Don't be afraid to use them. And if you think back to HBD uses really first and second endings really, really well. Okay, so number 8 is I want to talk to you about structure. So most cadences have the following structure: A, B, C, A, A, B, B, C, C, A, B, A, A, B, B. Okay, so you're probably wondering, what do all these letters mean? The letters just represent a way of breaking down the music into its component parts. So usually, and I have written down here, usually 8 measures of an idea, 8 measures of music equals a letter. So if we have a cadence, A would be 8 measures worth of an idea, B would be 8 measures worth of an idea, and C would be 8 measures worth of an idea. If we have an AA, BB, CC structure, this would just be A, but it's repeated. So this would actually be 16 measures right here, and this would be 16, and this would be 16. It's just that it's repeated like that. So, and you have written, for your assignment so far, you've written 8 measures. So you've written your A section already. The goal for the next assignment is for you to write your B section. Now, anytime you break a cadence down into its 3 component parts, an A, B, or a C, usually these 3 sections are going to sound completely different. It might even sound like a completely different cadence, but when you put all 3 together, like a paragraph, it makes musical sense. So like I said, you've written your A. Now the next part is you're going to want to write your B. Come up with a different musical idea and attach it to the A. Okay, this one's a little bit philosophical, but probably the most important one. Now, when I was looking over your cadences, I noticed that a lot of you had some really, really cool rhythms, but they didn't really have a direction. That's kind of the equivalent of texting someone and then just using the the text prediction button and just seeing where the sentence goes. It's English, but it doesn't make sense. So musically, we have to do the same thing. So each measure, I want you to ask yourself, what is the focus in this measure, and where is this measure going? So what is the focus in this measure? A lot of you had, like I said, really cool rhythms, but they were very busy. You had something cool going on in the snares, you had something cool going on in the basses, you had something cool going on in the tenors. The audience can really only focus on one section at a time. So if you have something cool going on in one section, you kind of need to make the other sections get out of the way. Now, the other one is, where is this measure going? Like we talked about before, your measure should be broken down into musical sentences. Now, they kind of need to have some direction. So if you put all of your cool stuff at the beginning and not at the end of the sentence, then that can be kind of jarring. So generally, as sentences go, musical sentences go, you want to write something simple at the beginning, maybe a little more complex, and finish off with something probably the hardest or most musically interesting. And if you have an idea, don't be afraid to get rid of it. Remember, we're going to be using these in the future. So if you're not happy with an idea, either A, save it for later, save it for a B section or a C section, or completely get rid of it and start over and find a rhythm that you actually like from someone else who's composed. Number 10, put some articulation and dynamics in there. So important. Okay, so your task for the next assignment is you're going to take your 8 measures that you wrote, your section A, that's what you just wrote, and you're going to write the next eight measures, which is going to be your section B. Now, I'm designing sort of this cadence assignment as an ABC, but if you want to change it up and do an AABBCC or an AABCC or something like that, you're totally welcome to. But if you want to keep it simple, we're going to do an ABC. So your next assignment is going to take 8 measures more and make your section B. So just tack it on to the end of your section A. The next 8 measures should sound fairly different in style and rhythm to section A. You want the audience, when they're hearing it, to sort of think, oh yeah, this kind of sounds a little bit different. That's important. Okay, so take all the things that we talked about in the last 9.5 steps, and you'll be golden. Good luck.